Hey, today's my last day of doing these DFO dailies, so I figured I'd talk about a pretty hot topic. I had a viewer, they follow me on Twitter, and they talked about how apparently my videos help them learn how to play Basara. And I figured it was kind of interesting to talk about how difficult it is to get into stylish action games, even fighting games. Like even, fighting games and things have had a very difficult time. They pretty much ignored the importance of teaching people how to play them. Now, recently, we just had the Guilty Gear Xrd family of games come out, and those have pretty good tutorials. Before that, about a year or two before that, Skullgirls came out, and that had a good tutorial. But ever since then, even before then, there really has not been anything that's put a significant amount of effort into making it easier for new players to get into the games. For the longest time, the community has had to kind of pick up the slack from the developers. I'm sure DMC4 is in a pretty good spot to learn how to play it now because there's all these resources. Obviously, there's the PC version with the debug mode, which, if you ask me, that's the only reason that game is all the crazy stuff in it. The only reason that stuff has been found is because of the PC version. The debug mode has basically been the heart of the metagame on that. If you've been around as long as I have, you remember back when the game came out, I put out a bunch of videos for it, and for the time they were pretty good. It's not like I wasn't a competent player. I just, I did not have the resources to really play the game at a high level. If you ever talk to Don Guri, he's a really good DMC and Tails player. He said that to get Dante to the level that he's at, he basically had to play Mission 12, that first room with the Mega Scarecrows. Apparently he just reset that room a ridiculous amount of times to get to where he is now. I feel like that's why our community is so small. There's plenty of people who would like to play, DMC and fighting games at a higher level, but the developers are not making it easy, and I feel like that's the main issue. The community, if they're passionate enough and the resources are there, will always pick up the slack of a developer, but I feel like it's something that shouldn't have to happen in the first place. People should be able to learn, the nuances of the mechanics without having to go to an outside source. Now, obviously, with fighting games, you're generally kind of conditioned to do that anyway. That's how fighting games started. I used to go to the arcade and I'd see someone do something cool with the character that I liked, and I would eventually learn how to do it from seeing them do it, and maybe even asking them if they were a friendly person. Obviously, not everyone at the arcade was friendly. That was a way that you kind of got your experience, was just from playing other people and seeing how they reacted to certain situations, how they played a character. But in a character action game, especially, you don't really have that option. You can watch a video of someone doing something crazy, but unless there's a resource available to learn how to do it and how that mechanic works, then you're probably not going to get too far, which is why a lot of people have been clamoring for the inevitable DMC5 release, which apparently, by the way, Itsuno tweeted earlier this morning. He said that he was sorry that they weren't able to announce something at E3, but he said that the project is progressing smoothly, which, obviously he's under an NDA. He can't just straight up say, DMC5 is going to be announced at PlayStation Experience, but it's a pretty safe bet that he's going to be making that. I hope that, they will listen to the community. The community has been clamoring for just a lot of kind of convoluted or archaic elements of the control scheme of DMC4 to be simplified so that, you can still have the same amount of depth without all the finger exercises and hand cramps. Playing Dante at a high level, especially with how much older I'm getting now and some of the hand problems I've had over the past year, is not even something I'd want to do at this point. Maybe if I had the PC version a little sooner and PC recording wasn't in such a bad state back then. We definitely have it a lot easier with recording PC games now than we did back in 2009 or so when the DMC4 PC port came out. We've got XSplit, we've got Shadowplay, Intel QuickSync, whatever AMD's equivalent is. You could get like a really good high quality video without really needing anything aside a pretty decent CPU and pretty much any GPU, at least in the past few years. Back then things were different. I feel like a lot of games like Skullgirls and Xrd really don't get credit for how much they've tried to break the trope of just anything with any kind of technical action game, being it a character action game or a fighting game, just being impossible to learn and needing someone to be like your direct tutor and stuff. I hope that more developers will learn from them. I haven't really played Street Fighter V, but I hear that the tutorial on that is kind of lacking, whereas the Skullgirls one teaches you stuff like fuzzy guards and like how to block and things like that, mix-ups. It teaches you so many concepts that you pretty much just had to learn by yourself before. And I'm proud of our community. I think our community has done a lot to kind of remove the stigma and make it seem like we're not cyborgs. We just put more time into learning these games, and some of us are nice enough and talented enough to teach others. I've learned a lot about DMC4 because there were a lot of people who did hardcore grinding on the PC version back when it came out, and people started to make really good tutorials. And now it's gotten a little better, but unfortunately the problem is the games still don't really provide adequate resources for people on console. Obviously, if you want to play DMC4 Special Edition, if you want to play any of the new characters at a high level, there's basically no reason to get the console version because there's no training mode. That's something that a lot of character action games, pretty much every major character action game, is still missing. One thing people can't complain about with the reboot was that they did add a training mode. Obviously, the problem with that training mode was this creepy, bright, eye-blindingly white purgatory, but at least it provided a resource to learn the moveset and see how the moves chain together. All the other DMC games don't have that. The only games that have really had that are kind of I guess you could call them off-brand ones, like Oni-chan Bar. Like, I had a lot of fun with the Oni-chan Bar Z2 Chaos training mode back when my computer was broken, and I pretty much no-lifed that game. I did everything on it. I got the Platinum Trophy. Like, it actually had a pretty decent training mode. It could train against any enemy in the game. It had a bunch of properties, changes that you can make, just like a fighting game. And I think it's kind of depressing that a low-budget character action game like that has done more to make the games accessible to newcomers than, the flagship series. That's kind of a problem with fighting games too. I hear, I was on vacation, just a few weeks ago, and one of my friends came over and they were playing some Guilty Gear, and he said that he started with Xrd, which I think is it's interesting because Guilty Gear has always had this. It's always had this misconception that it's just impossible to learn, and arguably, now that the games aren't in the arcade anymore, it definitely is a little harder to learn than other stuff. But the fact that they've really gone the extra mile and provided a really good tutorial has gone a long way towards getting new people interested. Like, I think the people who play DMC4 Special Edition are that are trying to get good on console are at the same disadvantage that we were being stuck with the 360 version. Like, the training mode in that is basically the whole basis for the metagame, the foundation of it, because you don't have to do the same 30-second battle thousands of times to learn a character. I really hope that DMC5 puts some more serious effort into making things more accessible, and I think that people think that making things accessible means dumbing it down. I'm sure in a lot of cases, especially with like AAA games, that is true. But with the character action game, just making the controls more accessible and making it easier to learn is only going to do good in the long run. They're going to get more sales. People will feel like they can actually do stuff they see in the videos instead of making it seem insurmountable. Obviously, our community has done quite a bit. I know we, all three of us that play Basara have done a lot for the community. We've tried to teach people and stuff, but I feel like the more advanced the game is, the more the developers should do to make sure that people can learn them. And right now, it's just been a major problem. We have all these fighting games come out where there's like not really much of a internal resource in the game at all to really teach people how to play. And people have such a negative stigma towards button mashers. It's like, well, if you don't tell somebody who's playing a fighting game for the first time, how to get started, then obviously people are going to button mash, and there aren't many games like that now. Obviously, right now we're in kind of a, I guess you could call it an FGC mecca. There's so many games coming out that the games are kind of like starting to cannibalize each other in terms of popularity. But that wasn't always the case. We had what we call the Dark Ages back around the time that CVS2 came out. Between there and Street Fighter 4, there wasn't really a whole lot to play. People were more open-ended, more open-minded towards the games back then. Now we have people that are still, Capcom worshippers and things like that. But even that's kind of starting to fade away. People have such a disappointment with Street Fighter V that a lot of people are kind of jumping ship to other games, and it's nice that we have so many options now. But with character action games, there's obviously much less of a choice or selection. Like, the reason I don't play DMC4 that much is just because I basically just fell behind. Basically, when the PC version came out, there were a lot of people. I think the debug mode was released shortly after. I think like late 2009 or something. Someone released the first debug mode, which allowed you to go into the Bloody Palace and give an enemy infinite health. Like that, that was a huge game changer. But at the same time, it shouldn't have to be. If you're gonna have crazy combo system like that, it should definitely be easier for people to get into it. So people have been talking about DMC5 for a while, obviously with the fact that they remastered 4, and 4 was a 7-year-old game at the time. It's obviously going to happen at some point. Pretty high chance that's what Tetsuno is working on. So we've been talking about how they could make it more accessible without dumbing down. There's lots of simple things they could do, like making it so that the player does not have to switch styles to do basic actions like air dashing and blocking. I think that would go a long way. A lot of the crazy finger exercises you need to do to play Dante just come from the fact that there's too many actions mapped to things that don't make sense. I think that with some minor, control method alterings, they could probably reduce a lot of that. Obviously, style switching is a great mechanic, but when you need to do all this finger exercise just to like air dash or guard, it gets really intimidating to a lot of people, especially when there's more simple games, more simple action games on the market where those kinds of actions are just maps to a single button. It would be great if something like Basara was on console or on PC, because I think that game would have a really high jump in the metagame as well. If that had training mode, we kind of had to get by with just certain stages you could do that had an enemy that you could fight easily without any interruptions or gimmicks. But that's definitely another example of a game like people would put out like crazy stuff for that if that ever got a PC port. Hopefully this next generation of stylish action games and fighting games is going to do a better job at teaching people how to play and making it not so much of an exercise in frustration that only the most hardcore and dedicated can handle. Like even Tales games have the minimum damage skill. Pretty much every game since most of the games since Vesperia have had something like that where you can make all your attacks do 1 damage. So you can easily learn the combo system in that without too much difficulty. You just switch away from the character with minimum damage on, you fight all the rest of the enemies, and then when one's left, you just train. It says a lot that, a niche RPG series has a better ability to learn how to play and learn the combo system than, you know, something that puts more emphasis into the combo system in the first place. That's why, as much as my, you know, I get frustrated with the growth of my channel and how difficult it is to kind of make a name for myself despite how long I've been doing it, I'm glad that I can at least translate all the countless hours I put to these games into help for other people, because it seems like the developers are not going to make any significant advances in terms of teaching people. Like, even if you're a pretty experienced fighting game player, the Guilty Gear tutorial has some pretty, like, really high-end stuff that you can learn how to do. I saw my friend doing it a couple weeks ago when I was up there. Like, if someone who's been playing the games for like over a decade can learn something from that tutorial, then obviously it's a really great tool for people who have never played before. Alright, I think I have 3 more runs here. Yeah, 3 more runs. I'm just going to go ahead and finish this so you guys can see the end of this. I'm probably not going to be playing this too much more past this point, because they're going to be adding the female priest next month. That's probably when I'll be playing extensively again. The Mistress class looks pretty fun. And it doesn't help that the Devil May Cry series has made, you know, it's made some advances in the reboot, but I don't know what happened with the special edition. I don't know why they couldn't have added a training mode. It still is a definite barrier of entry, even if you're playing on PC, because you have to download a trainer, which, you know, these days trainers can be pretty risky unless they come from someone you know. Obviously, no one in the DMC community is trying to break people's computers. I'm sure we would have known by now, but it's still still an extra step you need to take that most people may not even be aware of. Obviously, the game does not really give you a tooltip saying, you know, go hit this YouTube video and download this trainer for training mode. It's something that people should not need to do in the first place. It should be something that should be provided in the game. That's kind of a criticism that the Marvel Infinite demo has gotten. It focuses a lot on the plot, you know, the narrative, but you don't really have a chance to learn the mechanics because the enemies that they give you drop in like 2 combos. So people who might actually be interested in the story, even though it's probably not going to be a, you know, Academy Award winner, are struggling because you have to sit through all that loading for basically you know, a minute-long fight. So a lot of people have been saying, you know, if they want new people to play, they should have added, at the very least, maybe a tutorial to that same existing demo and make it easier for people to learn the mechanics, because that's what's going to make people you know, want to buy it. I know a lot of people are complaining about the graphics, but I think they could have promoted or pushed the accessibility stuff that they've added, which is actually seems like it's pretty good so far. They have a simple combo feature where you just mash square and you get a basic ground combo, launcher, air combo, and then you know, the flying screen move. And they have easy super combo as well. But obviously those are both very limited because, you know, you do the same thing every time. You can't use your character's full moveset that way, and you're obviously going to be doing suboptimal damage, especially in a game that's going to be pretty heavily based around the switching mechanic. But it does do a better job in easing people into it without, you know, making it so that, you know, button mashers are going to win against 15-year veterans. Which, you know, people get worried about that stuff too. I don't think that's going to be a problem with that game, but the demo definitely could have had a couple more, you know, extra features so that people playing for the first time could get eased into it a little better without having to risk dropping $60. Alright, this is my last run, and subsequently the end of the video. I got some feedback saying I should, when I ramble like this, I should at least have some gameplay up. Unfortunately, I still don't have really good editing software, so I can't like actually play a character action game while I talk about this stuff. But it's close enough, I guess. Even this game, if you go into the PvP, it actually does teach you some basic combos. PvP in this game is pretty much a joke because of the peer-to-peer connections. Pretty much no one plays PvP on this version, but I mean, at least if you go in there, you can learn some basic stuff. Every time they update the PvP on this, people complain because it's like it's considered trash. It's a pointless update. I guess in a way it is, but I don't think it's really the fault of the team that runs this version. It's a pretty small team. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and end it there. It was a topic that was brought up to me by someone who subscribed to my channel and said that they, were able to learn how to play Basara from my videos, which I think is really cool. That's what I like to do. I feel better about how much time I put into these games when I can educate others. It's unfortunate that the community, both the fighting game and stylish action game communities have to do it for the developers. But I'm hoping that with this next batch of both games in those genres, that maybe we'll see some change from them, and it'll be a little easier, and there'll be a little more parity in terms of the versions. Like obviously, you can get DMC4 Special Edition. It's on sale on PSN like every couple months. But if you want to play the game, it's still arguably useless. You're still going to be at a huge disadvantage versus someone who has the debug mode on PC. They're definitely going to need to change that with the next version or the next game. I hope that maybe they have some ninja reading NeoGAF or something, or watching my channel or subscribe to my channel, or other people that have been talking about this stuff too. It hasn't just been me. I hope that they will our advice and feedback is not falling on empty ears, that they'll make some changes. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and catch you guys later. I'm probably not going to be playing this too much more until the female priest comes out. I'll probably do a couple of speed runs with my characters, but I've been pretty burnt out doing this daily for like a month, so I'm probably going to be switching to some other stuff in the near future. Catch you guys later. Peace.